What's up everyone, Sixpenny here, and today I'm going to provide a tutorial on how you can putt from the green fringe in PGA Tour 2K23. I know many of you have asked me questions on the channel like, how in the world do you putt from the green fringe? It seems like you can't, but you actually can. Now I prefer chipping, and I did a full chipping tutorial on the channel. You can check that out if you want to know my preferred method when on the green fringe fairway. You know, I would rather chip than putt in almost basically any scenario because you get full control over the spin. I have a full gameplay tutorial playlist which includes that chipping tutorial down in the description if you're looking for more help on other aspects in the game. You get some enjoyment, drop a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and let's go ahead and get on with it. So we are in the practice facility. I talk about this in all my other videos on the best way to practice. So if you go to the pause menu or the main menu, go to casual training tab, it takes you to the driving range. So when you're in the driving range, you'll want to go in and click on practice and go into chipping practice. This is how you practice putting from the fringe, right? So you're going to hit the B button and you can move you can use the left and right stick, left trigger to zoom out, right trigger to zoom in, to place your ball wherever you want. So for today's purposes, we're going to be on the green fringe. And from the green fringe, I like, when I'm practicing, is to hit the start button, turn on auto mulligan. It's going to be off by default. It's always the first thing I usually do is turn on auto mulligan because I want to take the same shot multiple times. Now, with regards to putting, this video is specifically on how to putt from the fringe and the calculations you need for distance, you know, a little bit on aiming as well. But I have a full beginner's guide to my putting system. If you want to learn about my full putting system and how I approach each and every putt in the game at different green speeds, that video is on the channel and in the playlist. So when you're on the fringe, the game's going to default usually to the chip shot here. So we were at the lob wedge. So if it pulls out the putter, it's going to give you a default distance. The game always gives you a default distance. So we pulled out the putter. The game says for this 33 foot putt, we need to aim 35 feet. But many of you are here because every time you've done that, you've blasted the ball past the hole, especially on really fast green speeds, right? So you have to adjust from the game's default distance. What I do is from the game's default distance, I always take off 3 to 4 grid lines. So if I take off 1, 2, 3, 4, that's my starting point. Now, you have to further out 3, 4. You can go right at 3.5 if you want as a general rule. A lot of times, like I go by fill, I'll move it. For this example, let's move it 3.5, and then we'll do the eye test later to check it. I chose a flat putt specifically for this first one because I wanted you all to see the distance, right? Because the distance is the big thing that people are struggling with from the fringe. Now, we have our distance compensation from the game's default distance, but there are a lot of different factors in this game that affect the distance that it will fly off the fringe. Green speed, green firmness, all those factors. If you are in faster, firmer greens, you need to further take off distance. So if this was fast, firm, these are greens are pretty default. These are slow default 117 greens. So I don't have to compensate for that. But if we were downhill, if we were on fast green speeds, I talk about this in my putting video, but when you have your putter out on the green, it's going to show you a number at the top right of the screen. That's how far your putter would go at a flat green where you could just full send it, full power. That's how far it would go on that green speed. The higher the number, the faster the green speed. Higher green speed. So like when you get to the 146 or above, you got to really compensate by like 4 to 5 grid lines. And sometimes you can't even do that, right? If we're short-sighted and we're 5 yards away, a lot of times on fast green speeds, you can't putt from the fringe, right? It's just going to roll out too much. That's when you would chip with full loft and shot shaping, like I showed in my chipping video. That's the reason I prefer chip shot. But there's some people, because in real life, you would probably putt this like 90% of the time. You want to be shown how to putt from the fringe, right? So in this example, we compensated. We had the game's default putting distance 35. We compensated off about 3.5 grids, right? So we did our compensation. We have to take a look at, I talked about green speed. If the green speed was slower, don't take off as much, right? If the shot is uphill, you need to add more to that. So take off less or add more to that initial compensation. How I usually play it, I do that initial compensation, and then I adjust from there for the other elements. So it's uphill. For this specific case, it is uphill slightly. So from my 3.5, I'm going to add a little bit more instinctively on slow green speeds and slightly uphill. You got your distances down. Next up, you have to take into account left to right movement, right? You read it just like a putt. We don't have a lot of break here. I'm going to aim slightly to the left. There's a little bit of break. Then we're going to do the eye test. This is so important. I instinctively have a feeling that this is going to go too far. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust like half a grid. Then going to go into a practice swing, click the left stick in, and I'm going to get a feel for it. I usually play without the power meter. So what I look for, I click the right stick in to zoom in, and I look at the putter. When my controller vibrates, when that putter reaches, I'm looking at the putter spot, and I'm locking in on that spot on the ground. As soon as my putter gets there, I'm swinging. You don't have vibration turned on. You're playing without the meter. Practice swing, practice swing, practice swing. Pay attention to the right side of the screen. If it's dark gray, that means you're under or overpowered. If it's light gray, it means you're on the right track. Of course, if it's white, it means it's perfect. So I practice swing, and then we're just going to hit the putt and check our distance, right? So let's go ahead and hit the putt. And we came up a little bit short, right? So I compensated a little bit too much for the uphill roll, right? I compensated. That's why it's so important round from round to change. So if I had a putt on hole number 1 like that from the fringe, what I would do, I would compensate. So I'm like, okay, I need to take off less on the next one. So let's take off less and hit the putt. So then that's going to take us right in, right? So it basically, we overcompensated. But if I do the game's default distance, let's hit it. I underswung slightly, but look, I mean, right? You all see what I'm saying? If that's downhill, that ball's gone. That was an underswing. If I overswing it, it's gone. That is why I compensate as much as I do from the fringe. So yeah, we came up a little bit short, but is that a big deal? No. But if we blast it, if we don't compensate, or we compensate less and we overpower it, we're sending that ball, right? We're sending that ball. We're missing by so much more. We're making our comeback putt so much more difficult. So that is the general approach, how I approach every green fringe putt in this game. I take off 3 to 4 grid lines, usually general roll. I compensate 3.5, and then I compensate for green speeds, faster green speeds. I take off distance. Slower green speeds, I add distance, which is this case. Uphill, I add distance. Downhill, I take off distance. Let's do a downhill example. And we're gonna do a pretty significant downhill example here. So here we go. You'll have these putts a lot. So we have the down. This is a weird slope. Let's see if we can get a better looking slope here. Here we go. So look at this is 8 inches, 1 foot downhill. The game's default is 15 feet. Okay, many of you have been here. Let's hit what let's do what the game says. Okay, that's on slow greens. What if we overhit it? It's gone. If this is fast green speeds, bye-bye ball, right? You cannot change the green speeds in the practice facility. But if this is fast green speeds, you can just say bye to that ball, it's gone. So if I was to do this approach, I'm going to go ahead, take off 3.5, 1, 2, 3, half. So I'm putting here, right? This is when I'm saying if you don't have enough room for the compensation, you probably shouldn't be hitting the putt. I do have enough room here. So then I'm going to further adjust. We know it's slow green speed, so I know I can be a little bit more aggressive, right? So I'm going to actually add a little bit because I know I'm slow green speeds down. It's down a slope, but it's slow greens. So I'm going to go ahead and compensate for that by about a grid and a half. And then we got to aim our putt, right? Steady right to left. We know it's a downhill slope, so we know we have to take off a lot, right? So we're going to go ahead and hit the putt from there. I overhit it, but I already took so much off of the compensation. The overhit didn't matter too much, right? That's how safe I play downhill fringe putts. That is how you can play them. Fast green speeds, what I would be doing, eye test, I'd be like, okay, we're going all the way back here. As crazy as that looks, on fast green speeds, that's how I'd play that same putt. I wouldn't do it here. I inherently knew is slower green speeds, right? But if you choose the game's default distance, you're going to blast it past the hole like 90% of the time. What I do in this situation, like in my chipping video, the reason I like to chip this, I do full shot shaping, full loft. Let me show you why I like to chip this. Chips are very forgiving if you miss tempo. You can get them to stick. You see that? You can get them to stick. I don't have to worry, even on fast green speeds, I don't have to worry about that ball rolling out too much. It's such a safer shot. Full loft backspin on the chip shot is why I never putt from the fringe. I say never, but I actually would. This putt right here that we did earlier, I would 100% putt this. This is a very simple putt. The read's simple. I'm going to move back about 3.5 grid lines, right? I'm going to adjust for an uphill and slow greens about a grid. And then I'm going to aim slightly to the left because there's a little bit of break. And then I'm going to send the putt. That's so much easier than chipping, right? I make this so much more. I misread it. I pulled it on the, it was the swing plane that caused that to miss. We had the right read. I would putt that 100% of the time, but I would chip most downhill ones. Uphill, significant uphill ones as well. A lot of times I will actually, if we can find, there's not really a big significant uphill one in this game, but I would chip those as well. Like here's an uphill one. So let's take a look at this one. We have a putt. The game tells us 35 feet. What am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take off 3.5. 1, 2, 3.5. Right at the cup is where we're aiming. So we're aiming right at the cup. Let's adjust. We know there's slower green speeds, so I'm going to add about a grid. You'll adapt during your rounds. Don't forget to adapt. If the greens are playing slow and you're under hit, if you like to putt from the fringe and you're landing up short every time, adjust for it. If you're overhitting every single putt, you better be taking off some in your compensations in a round. Pay attention to how you're hitting the ball. Pay attention to how the ball is rolling in general, and make compensations to all of your calculations and the way you play the game. So we're at 26 now. We have to take a look at the break. So I have the grid here. I'm gonna aim about a grid and a half out. Now it's an uphill putt. It's not gonna break as much from the fringe. Usually it doesn't break as much, so I'm going to take off a little bit on my aim. And the eye test, right? Will this really get there? And my instinct tells me that I need to add a bit more. I'm going to go to 27 feet. And then we're going to hit the putt. Feel for it. And then take the putt. I overhit it. Did we compensate right? So we crushed that ball. We overcompensated in the calculation with that uphill putt at the beginning. So my eye test was wrong. Sometimes your eye test is wrong. That's the reason. Sometimes I chip from there, right? I chip from there most of the time. It was not a bad shot. If we hit the game's default, okay, let's hit the game's default, everybody. Good luck, right? That's why you have to compensate. That's why a lot of you probably clicked on this video, because you were getting frustrated, like, what in the world? This doesn't make sense. I compensated to 27, and that was still too much. So basically, I needed to be at about 25 and then hit it that way. Overswung a little bit, but that would be the right read on that one, right? It's a perfect holding speed up the hill. That is how you can approach green fringe shots in this game. You know, in my tutorial videos, I like to really slow it down and talk through the process and talk through everything. The reason I made this video is because a lot of you came with this question and were like, green fringe is, putting from the green fringe is broken. It's not broken. It's just the game's default distance is not good. Now, it feels on fast green speeds, I would say never. Like if you're above 146, like 158, 176, 186, the really fast green speeds, I would chip with full loft, full backspin every percent of the time. So check out that chipping tutorial to learn how to do that. But on slower green speeds and at the right position, I will 100% putt it. Especially on more level surfaces, not as much on significant uphill or downhill slopes. But some people, in real life, I would putt this like 99% of the time. And some people like to play just like they play in real life. So I wanted to make this tutorial videos for those of you that have been asking this question. I hope you found this helpful. You know, my closing thoughts would be chip. You know, chips are tough to get the partial distance down, but they're very forgiving on tempo. So you can very fast a chip and it really doesn't matter, right? We very fasted a chip in this video when I was demonstrating that downhill shot. It didn't really matter because we did full loft and shot shaping. That's the reason I chip. So you all, if you like, let me know. Do you all putt from the fringe? Will you be using it more now that you know kind of how to approach it, or will you never touch it? You all will have to let me know. But I appreciate each and every one of you all. You all are legends. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. I hope some of you got some enjoyment out of this and found it helpful if you putt from the fringe, or maybe you just find it interesting and are like, oh, I may actually do this sometimes. That was my goal with this video. Subscribe for more. Click that notification bell to be a part of the notification squad. I will have more gameplay tutorials coming, but I have tons already live on the channel. I have so many, like over 10. So if you check out the full gameplay tutorial playlist, you can see them all. Check out my career mode series videos and my other videos on the channel, course showcases, live streams. If you want to see my process in action, in an actual round, I go through all this stuff really quickly, right? I will see you on the next one. As always, have a fantastic day, everybody.